Imagine a man locked in a room. Difficult, I know, but see if your imagination can carry you there. A man is locked in a room, the doors are shut tight, and he does not know when he'll be out. To begin with, the man makes do. After all, he'd always intended to learn the guitar, to paint the hallway, to start a podcast, to fix his daughter's bike, to read Moby Dick, to bake banana bread, to design an app, to tie his own fishing lures, and to retile the bathroom, something he'd promised to do in 1997. These are the opportunities that present themselves in the early days, and even though the door has just shut on him, the man feels almost hopeful about it all. But of course, the man does none of these things that he'd planned. Instead, he subscribes to his 4th video streaming service and becomes part man, part sofa, gorging himself on 8 kinds of cheese-based snacks. However, if the door is not opened, and if he bangs on it repeatedly, raising his voice, and still he is trapped, well then, he'll become angry. Anger is about blocked goals. You want something, but someone is standing in the way. How dare they? You get angry. Maybe you bang on the door, you raise your voice, you demand your rights, you feel the injustice of it all. But if the door still does not open, if your cries continue to fall on deaf ears, then eventually your anger will turn to apathy. You'll slump on the floor in hopelessness. You're committed to your goal, you want your freedom, but now you're convinced that the one thing you're desperate for will never happen. This is despair, and it's a hell of a place to be. Look back over the last 12 months and you'll see these 3 phases. There was activity, wasn't there? We baked our sourdough bread, we exercised with Joe Wicks, we clapped for the carers. But then there was anger, a lot of anger in 2020. You know, domestic and child abuse soared. And all of us in 2020 became about 6,000% more tetchy. Did you feel it? There's a sense in which lockdown is a burden inflicted on me. There's also a sense in which I am a burden inflicted on my household. But beyond the anger, there is apathy. Hot tempers eventually cool into frozen rage. If you bang on a locked door and if it never opens, you'll eventually fall in despair. Did you know that last year 1/4 of teens self-harmed? And 1 in 15 attempted suicide? There is a desperate lack of hope in our world right now. And all the while, I've been speaking of lockdown. What about the pandemic that has provoked it? In 2020, we lost almost 100,000 to COVID. We lost 600,000 to all causes. And on a near daily basis, we've been reminded of our fragility, our mortality. Because this world is a locked room, and no one gets out alive. So what is our hope? In the TV show The West Wing, the character Josh is in a dark place. His friend Leo tells him this story.
This guy's walking down the street when he falls in the hole. The walls are so steep he can't get out. A doctor passes by and the guy shouts up, "Hey, you, can you help me out?" The doctor writes a prescription, throws it down in the hole, and moves on. Then a priest comes along and the guy shouts up, "Father, I'm down in this hole, can you help me out?" The priest writes out a prayer, throws it down in the hole, and moves on. Then a friend walks by. "Hey, Joe, it's me, can you help me out?" And the friend jumps in the hole. Our guy says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both down here." The friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out."
Is there hope? Yes, because there is a friend who joins us in the darkness and who knows the way out. The prophet Isaiah told the world what would happen when the Messiah, the Son of God, came. He would befriend us. He would join us. He would jump into the mess to bring us out. Isaiah wrote, "Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering." This is incredible friendship. It's the friendship that says, your darkness will be my darkness and your pain will be my pain. I don't know what you make of Easter, but Easter is the time when the Lord who made us and who loves us jumped in the hole. And as he did that, he didn't just feel our darkness, he took responsibility for it. On the cross, he carried the weight of our spiritual and moral darkness, our sin. Isaiah wrote, "He was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our sins. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed." We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the sins of us all. In our dark pit, with the doors locked and no hope for escape, incredibly, we look to the cross, and there we see that our Maker has joined us to love us, to take responsibility for us, to befriend us, to save us. No wonder Christians sing of the wondrous cross.
Come and see, come and see, come and see the King of Love. See the purple robe and crown of thorns he wears. Soldiers mock, rulers sneer, as he lifts the cruel cross. Lone and friendless now he climbs towards the hill. We worship at your feet, where wrath and mercy meet, and the guilty world is washed by love's pure stream. For us he was made sin, oh help me take it in. Deep wounds of love cry out, Father, forgive. I worship the Lamb who was slain.
Come and weep, come and mourn, for your sin that pierced him there, so much deeper than the wounds of thorn and nail. All our pride, all our greed, all our fallenness and shame, and the Lord has laid the punishment on him.
We worship at your feet, where wrath and mercy meet, and the guilty world is washed by love's pure stream. For us he was made man of heaven, born to earth to restore us to your heaven. Here we bow in awe beneath your searching eyes. From your tears comes our joy, from your death our life shall spring. By your resurrection power we shall rise. We worship at your feet, where wrath and mercy meet, and the guilty world is washed by love's pure stream. For us he was made sin, oh help me take it in. Deep wounds of love cry out, Father forgive. I worship the Lamb who was slain. I worship the Lamb who was slain. The Lamb who was slain, wounded for me.
Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgive them, they know not what they do. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgive them, they know not what they do. Today, Father, forgive them, you will be with me in paradise. Forgive them, you will be with me today. Today, Father, forgive them, you will be with me in paradise. Forgive them, you will be with me today. Today, Father, forgive them.
for my sake, my Lord should take frail flesh and die. He came from his blessed throne, salvation to bestow, but man made strange and none belonged for Christ would know. But oh, my friend indeed, who at my need his life did spend. Why, what hath my Lord done? What makes this rage and spite? He made the lame to run, he gave the blind the sight. Sweet injuries, yet they these themselves displease and gainst him rise. My God, my God, why have you left me here? Where are you now when I need you near to rescue me? Deliver me from fear. Please don't forsake me. My God, my God, why have you left me here? Where are you now when I need you near to rescue me, deliver me from fear? Please don't forsake me. Lord, answer me. Do you not hear my sighing? All day and night, my eyes are sore from crying. I long for you to keep my hope from dying. I find no rest. My God, my God, why have you left me here? Where are you now when I need you near to rescue me, deliver me from fear? Please don't forsake me, my God. See, oh, my God, that I am poor and weak. I have no voice, I have no strength to speak. They scoff and stare, have pierced my hands and feet. My heart is of the darkest day, Christ on the road to Calvary, tried by sinful men, torn and beaten, then nailed to a cross of wood. Oh, to see the pain written on your face, bearing the awesome weight of sin, every bitter thought and every evil deed, crowning your blood-stained brow. There's the power of the cross. Christ became sin for us, took the blame, bore the wrath. We stand forgiven at the cross. Now the daylight flees, now the ground beneath quakes as its maker bows his head. Curtain torn in two, and dead raised to life, finished the victory cry. There's the power of the cross. Christ became sin for us, took the blame, bore the wrath. We stand forgiven at the cross. Oh, to see my name written in the wounds, for through your suffering I am free. Death is crushed to death, life is mine to live. Won through your selfless love. This the power of the cross. Son of God, slain for us. What a love, what a cost. We stand forgiven. Oh, what a love, what a cost. We stand forgiven at the cross.
It seems Jesus didn't say very much on this day, so it would probably be inappropriate if I babbled. But if I sort of do babble a bit and you get nothing from it, just remember this, that you're loved. That you are loved. You are loved. And if I just stood here and said that for 5 minutes and sat down, it would probably look better than the inane rant I'm about to give you. I don't know if you go to church here. Maybe you've never been here before, if you go to church normally, or if you actually go to a normal church. But one evening, I came here, and it was very loud. And there was a lot of smoke that was made on purpose. and people had their hands in the air and were doing things and were being quite cool. And I didn't really feel very cool at all. It was like, hey, God's here in Kensington and he's English. Which is fine if you feel that. I didn't feel that, and what I did was I left quite quickly, feeling nothing, but sort of quiet resentment that the smoke and the volume weren't really what I was after at all. And I went home, and when I got home, I sat in my armchair, and my home is quite scuzzy, and I sat down, and facing Bill's unwashed dishes, not Bill's, I mean Bill's and unwashed dishes, dirty things, and a message on my phone from a friend who has cancer, who's dying. And I sat there for quite a long time, and feeling this kind of sense of deep, I don't know if you have this, maybe you don't, maybe you're kind of young and cool and happy and life's good, but I felt this deep kind of nothingness. And I thought, I've just been to church and feel very empty. And I was thinking about my friend who's dying, and basically my question was, where is the God of pizzazz now? Where is the God of flashing lights now? In my armchair, feeling crap. And my answer was, he isn't. We just kind of do this weird thing where we get together and make weird sounds and we think it's cool, and then we go home and actually it's not. That's what I thought. And I sat there for a long time thinking, maybe you don't ever have these big chasms of nothing. But I did. And I have loads of books in my house, and I saw a corner of a book sitting on the sort of side table, and I just pulled it out. Like 2 books. One was Oscar Wilde's book, and this other one was a series of paintings that were shown in the National Gallery. And it was called Seeing Salvation, the exhibition. It was paintings of Jesus. And the one on the cover, when I looked at it, it was honestly like being slapped in the face. Do we have that image here? It was painted by someone, it's anonymously painted in sort of 1500s. And I stared at it for really quite a long time. And what struck me most about it was his eyes were red from crying, and it seemed like there was blood in his tears. And I don't know how to describe it, but I think it hit me very profoundly that the pizzazz and the smoke and the da-da-da-da are all fine. But I'd forgotten, and I'd been going to church for a long time, I'd forgotten who this person really was, what he was. And I sat there thinking, who are you? Just stared at his face. It's one of the greatest paintings I've ever seen in my life, I think. And one of the songs I had in my head from years ago was this. But it's not a song, it's actually a verse, but it's, may your attitude be that of Jesus, who being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant. And I thought, that's not like me. I want to be something. This person, whoever he is, became nothing. And I just stared at his face and thought, I don't know who you really are. My Christianity is very kind of, cool, yeah, it's Christian, I'm a Christian, yeah, don't do this, don't do that, yeah, I go to church, it's fun, we sing, it's great, yeah. Then bang, this kind of being slaps me in the face, who is totally other, totally something, and if you really look at his life, he was despised and rejected, oppressed and afflicted. He was a man of sorrows, was acquainted with grief, and we held him in very low esteem. And yet he's the most influential leader we've ever had, but he washed people's feet. There was nothing about him to attract us to him, so it says. He was homeless, was born in a shed. He invited criminals who were shepherds to his birth. He was a non-violent revolutionary who hung out with lepers and crooks, prostitutes, broken people, tired people, people who couldn't be bothered to sing and would leave early. People who had no religion, ordinary people, naughty people. He didn't come to judge you at all, to save you. That interests me. Religion doesn't. I don't know how you feel about religion. And so when I sat in my own chair, I don't know if you ever do this, where you go on these kind of long thought process, trains of thought, where you just think about someone and really look at them and look into them. And so I looked into him. And the more I thought about it, the more profound it became. And the whole idea that God, I don't understand it. It's bizarre, this mystery, that God could contract to a span and become man. It's incomprehensible that he could do that. But that he did, and that he would make himself nothing and be nothing and probably smell quite a lot. It's mind-blowing. And he was humiliated. So humiliated. This is God being humiliated by arrogant man. And the other book that was on my side was by Oscar Wilde. And he's one of my favorite writers. And he wrote a book called De Profundis, which he wrote when he was in prison. He had this moment. A lot of the book, De Profundis, a third of it's probably on Jesus. So towards the end of the book, he talks about Christ in a way that I haven't really read before. You wouldn't expect it coming from him. And I think what triggered it was his moment on Clapham Junction station. And he was standing, apparently. He says this, anyway, his book. He says, I was brought down here, this is in 1895, from 2 o'clock till 2:30 on that day, I had to stand on the centre platform of Clapham Junction in convict dress and handcuffed for all the world to look at. Of all possible objects, I was the most grotesque. When people saw me, they laughed. Each train as it came up swelled the audience. Nothing could exceed their amusement. That was, of course, before they knew who I was. As soon as they'd been informed, they laughed even more. For half an hour, I stood there in the grey November rain, surrounded by a jeering mob. And he goes on to say that religion, he says, does not help me. But then, he then speaks of Jesus in the most beautiful way. I haven't read writing like that, of his Christ's empathy, Christ's kindness, Christ aligning with the suffering. And my question then was, because that's what I thought Jesus was just someone incredibly kind who came to show compassion. But I don't think you get crucified for being empathetic or kind. And so again, my thought process is, what was he doing? Why was he sweating blood? Apparently you do that when you're really, really terrified. Why? And clearly, if you read, when I've sort of read about him, he seemed quite confident about his crucifixion to come, his death. He's very sort of gung-ho. This is what I've come to do. And yet, what's he scared of then? Why is he so terrified? He was courageous. There are many martyrs who've gone willingly to their death. Socrates and all the various people in history have been happy to do it. And yet he suddenly is terrified. And people could say, Mel Gibson did his movie with blood and everything. And you could say, well, he's terrified of the physical pain. Well, was he scared of that? Probably. What it seems to be is a deeper fear, which is this, and there's a hint of it when Peter, when Jesus is arrested in the garden, Peter sort of tries to stop it with a sword, and it's all kind of quite wild and things. And Jesus says this, shall I not drink from the cup my Father has given me? And I always think the cup was quite poetic and quite sort of, I don't know, I didn't really know what it meant, but the cup he refers to is one that's well known in the Old Testament, the cup is a symbol, if you like. It's a regular symbol of God's wrath, God's rage. And it says that a wicked person must drink from the cup of the wrath of the Almighty. And I am wicked. So I'm headed for that. And Jesus was terrified of this. And he said, if it's possible, my Father, if it's possible, may this cup be taken from me, but not as I will, but as you will. So that cup he refers to is that he's going to drink from the cup of the wrath of the Almighty. Not only that, but he's also going to become sin. This is a mystery. I'm saying these words, and as I'm listening to my mouth, I'm thinking, that sounds insane. It's insane. And so hard to understand. And I've given up trying, actually, frankly. But the one thing I'd say of it is that it works. That's the bizarre thing. It actually works. But we don't know what pains he had to bear, as the hymn says. But we believe it was for us. And his terror of coming, if he's sinless, coming to full contact with human sin must have made his soul recoil. The alienation from his Father, which judgment on sin would involve, was terrifying. And he basically hung back from it. I'm sure he was fine with that, with the sort of slapping in the blood. And I suppose if I was going to try and explain the cross, I'd say that there's a dark division. I think we began pretty well with God, and then we created this dark division and put ourselves somewhere in the middle of everything. And he seems to be coming to consume the darkness, to absorb it, to take away the division. And my dad had cancer. I watched him dying of cancer, and there was someone I loved who was being invaded by cancer. And it's a horrible thing to see someone you love so much being taken over by something so dark. And yet here was a man who was absorbing all of us. I mean, my stuff is enough to be getting on with, let alone the human race, historically. It's huge, but I still don't understand it. And one of the greatest things he does is I think we've inherited a kind of shame. That we began freely with God to look at him and smile in the garden, whatever that was. We lost it, and we hid. I don't know if you know that feeling where you're ashamed and you hide. You're aware of yourself, your own, whatever it is. And Jesus comes to take that away, to close the divide and say, you're free to look at him now. And you can have your smoke and your guitars, and you can have your silence, however you choose to do it. You're free to look straight in the eye because he's done it. And religion to me was you doing it. This is him doing it, and that's the shocker. And I actually, to be honest with you, thought morality would be enough and it would get me home. It doesn't. It's probably the ugliest thing that's ever happened in the cosmos without question, actually, not probably at all, but it's also the most beautiful. And I think what's incredible about the crucifixion, if you see the birth of Jesus, he invites naughty people, the shepherds. And at the end, that's the beginning of his life. At the end of his life, he's hanging with, crucifixion was really reserved for murderers. It wasn't a sort of common way of dying. You had to be a really seriously bad person to be hung up there. And he was hung between two of these guys. One of them, who was the bottom of society. It's such a bizarre thing that this guy hanging next to him is the first person Jesus welcomes into the kingdom. So if you look at the paradox of this, I think it was all about good people doing good things. The birth, you've got naughty shepherds. His death, he invites a pretty serious criminal. And the criminal defends him, actually. The criminal sort of says, listen, we deserve what's being done to us, but not him. And the criminal, he turns to Jesus and says, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus says, and if you ever want to pray a prayer, that's the prayer to pray. Just do that. Because Jesus says, I tell you the truth, today you'll be with me in paradise. I'd like to hear that. Oscar Wilde, I'll go back to him and shut up. He said this about Jesus in this book, De Profundis. If you want to read a great book, read it. It's amazing. From prison, he said this of Jesus. There is still something to me almost incredible in the idea of a young Galilean peasant, imagining that he could bear on his own shoulders the burden of the entire world, all that had already been done and suffered, and all that was yet to be done and suffered. The sins of Nero, of Caesar Borgia, of Alexander VI, and of him who was emperor of Rome and the priest of the sun. The sufferings of those whose names are legion and whose dwelling is among the tombs. Oppressed nationalities, factory children, thieves, people in prison, outcasts, those who are dumb under oppression, and those whose silence is heard only of God. And not merely imagining this, but actually achieving it, so that at the present moment, all who come in contact with his personality, even though they may neither bow to his altar nor kneel before his priest, in some way find that the ugliness of their sin is taken away and the beauty of their sorrow revealed to them. Thanks, Oscar. Thank you.
Save us, rose that we would be free.